West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
I want to basically give you an open mic to respond to what you heard today in the Supreme Court, but begin, if you will, with this one point. Is this the first time, it's the first time I remember hearing an argument in the Supreme Court about taking a right away from people?
You're right, Lawrence. If the Supreme Court does what I think it is absolutely certain now that it will do, and that is, whether it calls it overruling Roe v. Wade or not, getting rid of the fundamental right to abortion until viability. When it does that, it will be the first time in our nation's history that we have turned things backwards in terms of rights. All along, we have expanded rights. Brown v. Board expanded rights beyond what Plessy had said. Lawrence v. Texas expanded rights for LGBT people. We've expanded. But if we do what the court now is poised to do, it will be the first turnaround. We will have lost our virginity, basically. And once we do it this time, it's going to be a lot easier to do it next time with contraception, with same-sex marriage, with gun rights, for example. Rights that conservatives like, rights that liberals like. It's always been a matter of expanding rights. This will be the first reversal of that trend. But that's not only, and not the only first it'll be. It will also be the first time that the Supreme Court, since Dred Scott in 1857, took the position that when there are rights on both sides, back in 1857, they thought that slave owners had rights. But we could have a nation half slave and half free. We could just let each state decide for itself. The position that Justice Kavanaugh took in today's argument was that if we are scrupulously neutral, instead of resolving a conflict between important rights, the woman's right to liberty and bodily integrity, and a possible right on the part of the unborn to survive, we will be scrupulously neutral between those rights, not by developing a constitutional line like viability, not by having a nationwide constitutional amendment the way we did in the 14th Amendment to finally make former slaves full citizens of the country, but by letting each state vote, by majority vote in that state, whether fetuses will be protected or women will be protected. And there's a third first that I think is extremely important. You ended with the quotation from Justice Sotomayor asking whether the institution of the Supreme Court can preserve its legitimacy, continue its important role in our country. If the stench on that court is so visible and evident as it will be when nothing but the composition of the court has changed. Nothing else has changed in the 30 years since Casey, and really in the 50 years since Roe. Nothing constitutionally relevant. It's just that there are some new faces there. Now, important as the institutional legitimacy of the court is, and I think it's important, even more fundamental is the question, will we have a legitimate form of law if we have a nation in which half the citizens have less than full rights? We men have the right to control our bodies. We have a court that says bodily integrity is important. Even when you've got a terrible pandemic, people might have a right under the religion clauses to say, no, keep your hands off my body. But there will be one group of people who are subject to a very different regime, who can be told that their bodies can be conscripted to remain involuntarily pregnant. And one of the most astonishing moments in the argument today occurred when Justice Barrett said, essentially, I'm paraphrasing her, essentially, it's not that big a deal if women are forced to be pregnant and remain pregnant. After all, they could have used contraception, and if that doesn't work, well, all they have to do is leave their baby at the front steps of an adoption agency, because all 50 states have safe haven laws, and nobody then has to be an involuntary parent. Made me think of Sophie's Choice. The idea that women can be told it's really okay that we force you to remain pregnant because at the end you can just give up your baby. Nobody with any sensitivity could think that that is the meaning of liberty, dignity, equality, freedom. So today's argument, though it wasn't surprising where the court is going to come out, was important not only because of the devastating effect that what the court is about to do is going to have, not only for poor women, but really for the status of women throughout the country, but important because it will reverse for the first time the trend toward expanding rights. And fundamentally important because it will say that we can put up to a majority vote in each state the balance of competing rights. And important because it will bring into question not only the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, but the legitimacy and justice of our entire system of law and government. The stakes could not be higher.
It is Thursday, the 2nd of December of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Well. We've been struggling with a few technical issues here this morning. My WavePad Master Edition WavePad sound editor is not playing back for me. So when I grabbed clips to include in today's show, of course I have to format them, but I'm not able to play them back, which means that I have to reboot the machine here. And I got to tell you, that takes a bit of time, and we didn't have time to do it. So we'll have to do it after the show. All right, so we're flying blind. How's that? Well, speaking of flying blind, the Supreme Court yesterday heard oral arguments for taking the rights away from women. It's so weird. I'll go through this one more time because it's becoming a broken record, so to speak. We, as the Democratic part of the political spectrum, believe in conferring rights, expanding rights. I mean, it's human rights, isn't it not? Isn't it not? That's a double negative. Is it not? I'll get it. And it seems that the other side, meaning the Republicans, and we have all sorts of pejoratives for them, I won't go through them all, they seem bent on taking rights away. That black man over there, 3/5 of a person. Women, they're not even 3/5. Are you kidding me? And that's where we are. The Republicans are upset that a fetus, a mass of cells, has no viability outside the womb. Oh, I guess maybe there's some scientific practices that might be able to keep the massive cells alive for a while. Will it develop? I don't think so. We're not there yet. They are upset that does not have as many rights or the same rights as a black man and black woman walking on the street. Am I making it about race? Damn right. There's all sorts of things that tickle the lizard brains of these, well, let's call them what they are. Fascists. Oh, autocrats, I know, but it's fascism. I'd even go so far as to call them Nazis, because it rolls off the tongue. Fascism, Nazi. I kind of like Nazi. So, 3 members of the court were placed on there illegitimately. No pun intended. And yet, we are boxed in a corner and we can't do anything. Oh, hell yes, we can. Joan McCarter has been rallying the cry for quite some time. Expand the court. I know there's lots of arguments against doing it, but we're beyond how it looks. All right? I'm not even asking to play hardball here. Can't we just at least play some really good fast-pitch softball? At least? Expand the court. If Mitch McConnell can hold up nominations from Obama for over a year and then ram through Amy Coney Barrett in 8 days before Ruth Bader Ginsburg is even put in the ground, expand the court. We're beyond how it looks. The legitimacy of the court, it has a stench. And the only way to get rid of that stench now, as Sotomayor mentioned, the only way to get rid of the stench is to bring in a few more sweet-smelling justices. Expand the court. And we should not stop there either. If they were so willing to purge the United States government of all the commies I hold here within these blank pieces of paper, their names were all on these blank pieces of paper, they were willing to purge commies from that, then we can purge the Nazis in our government with an actual printout. We don't need to hold up blank pieces of paper and accuse people of being Nazis. No more Nazis in the military. Purge all Nazis from the police forces, and no more hiring of Nazis anymore. What's a Nazi? You know what a Nazi is. I'm asking, can we at least play fast-pitch softball? At least. We don't need to go beanball hardball. We do have a story up today about baseball. Beanball, hardball. Yep. And they're doing it in the off season because they think that will work. Well, it's still going to affect spring training and opening day. Just saying. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves here because I'm using the baseball metaphor when we have a story about baseball today. But we need to become a little bit more activated. We won't hear the decision on this case until June. That's when it's projected that the court will publicize its edict. I would like to have some sort of, apparatus, a lawful way of holding justices who lied while under oath, hold them accountable. Just because now they are sitting on the Supreme Court that they can't be held to account. There's already been a justice who, was he impeached, Fortas? He had to leave because of some improprieties. And I think there's a lot of improprieties going on and went on. And I would think lying under oath and then becoming a judge just doesn't seem to compute. How can that work? If a witness on the stand is impeached because of a lie, and you cannot take anything else that witness presents as factual because of the lie that was told, how is it that the highest court in the land has members in its body who lied under oath for the world to see? And we've seen them again. We saw clips over just last night of Alito, younger Alito. I think that guy's been drinking a lot. Mm-hmm. You can tell. But anyway, let's not get on a gossip tangent. Young Alito, they're all talking about stare decisis. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday it was, we don't have to follow precedent. Look at Plessy. Yeah, Plessy is their black best friend. One of my best friends is black. Plessy, right over here. Plessy v. Ferguson. And it is appalling they would use that case to get rid of women's rights. That case. They're saying that case was a mistake, and it is on the par of the mistake of Roe v. Wade. They talk about the genocide, the Holocaust of the unborn. Well, right there, the unborn. How is it that something that cannot breathe, has no cognition? I'm serious. Yeah, you're going to argue with me about synapse activity in an entity that doesn't even have a brain yet. That is conferred with more rights than the kids getting shot up in the schools, apparently. Yeah, right to life. Which reminds me, Keith Olbermann is being raked over the coals because of a tweet. The shooter there at that high school yesterday comes from a maggot family. They bought him a gun on Black Friday. Here, son, here's a gun. And he took it to school and shot it up. And all the BS he was told about immigrants and how they're coming to take our way of life away. And, from a family who doesn't want their kids reading Beloved. Don't read Beloved, go and shoot your school up. And they had actually called in, they being the high school, called in those parents because there was something wrong with that kid. They needed to talk to the parents. Well, we know exactly what was wrong with that kid. And Keith Olbermann was right. Barstool, that sports program that seems to be fairly testosterone, steroid-addled maggots themselves. posted come on, this kid, this varsity football player, athlete, jock, ran towards the kid firing the gun and saved a bunch of his classmates, and he is rightfully a hero. And Keith just reminded folks who the shooter was. And he's being raked over the coals. Why would you bring politics into it? The parents being, Trump supporters have nothing to do with what their kid did. Yeah, it has everything to do with what their kid did. They bought him a gun on Black Friday. Here, 15-year-old, here's a gun for you. Make you a man. Go be a man. They're lucky that he didn't shoot them like that kid did in Sandy Hook. Well, killed his mom because that's who was taking care of him. She got him all sorts of guns. Here, have another gun. Make you a man. Make you feel good. Lanza. Just to be, journalistically correct. So, we have kids shooting up the schools. A party that calls themselves Right to Life that won't do anything about that. But a mass of cells that cannot breathe on its own has more rights than the vessel carrying it. And that is going to be codified into the law. And they're using Plessy as the great example of how they're overturning a wrong. Abigail Adams asked, what about the ladies? And this SCOTUS would say, you're not even 3/5 of a human, you're chattel. Shut the F up. All right. When they talk about being led around by the nose, yeah, there's a nose ring there because you're chattel, you're cattle, and they're going to lead you around, and you're just a vessel. You have no rights. And as Lawrence Tribe said at the top, will we have a legitimate form of law if women have less than full rights? We hear arguments that immigrants have no rights. Oh, they're asylum seekers. They don't have any rights. Yes, they do. Anybody who's here has full rights. I'm sorry. You don't get to vote. But life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all that. And I would say that, people pay taxes, too, without being citizens of the United States. They should be afforded some recompense, which is usually like, yeah, you can walk around here without the cops pulling you over and asking for your papers. Oh, wait a second. We have a fascist court that changed that, too, didn't they? And then I'm not even getting into the gerrymander situation that is going hog wild across the states. So I'm sorry. We got to play at least fast pitch softball. All right? No more of this shuffleboard. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, the January 6th panel voted to charge former DOJ official Jeffery Clark in criminal contempt. About time. The GOP will risk a government shutdown to fight Biden over the vaccine mandate for federal workers. Oh, now they're all concerned about federal workers. And forcing its first work stoppage since 1995, Major League Baseball owners have locked out the players. And they're doing it now so the players won't walk off during the season. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Russia warned that some U.S. diplomats will have to leave by January 31st. And a World War II bomb exploded at a construction site in Munich, injuring 4 people. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is our chat room link, and our chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link, across the page, at our homepage at netrootsradio.com, near the bottom, off to the left is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it would really help us upgrade this degrading machinery and continue getting the software that we need to make it all work. Oh, yes. Let alone just pay the bills that are day to day to keep everything up and running. And thank you for your generosity. If you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink and send those funds to us once a month, it really does help us do all that I stated. And really, you know, when we pay our bills, we found that over these almost 11 years now, that we are flying under the radar and pretty much continue doing what we're doing in this powerhouse of resistance against the hostile takeover of the United States of America. So thank you for your generosity. We really do need it. And thank you once again. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of me, and I am at Justice Putnam on Twitter. Follow me there because I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and I really try to get it linked up on Twitter and other social media platforms. Sometimes while the show is going on during that top clip. Eek. So, okay, there you go. And if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at Cookbook West. I think I mentioned follow the show or follow the station at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Yes, I did. Okay, good. Whew. A little discombobulated here because of the weird degradation of things that are going on. I wasn't even able to listen to the YouTube stuff. I got to reboot the machine. What is going on? I don't have time to reboot right now. We're here right now, working away. Anyway, yes, follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts, at least for now, on Spreaker. Yeah, Spreaker, you've pretty much you priced us out of using your service. We got to go somewhere else. Looks like we will be having to archive on archive.org, the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. Oh, yeah. So we should have been there anyway to be on the safe side. And, of course, we are backed up on Dropbox, but you don't get to access Dropbox at a drop of a hat now, do you? So we're in the process of figuring out where to host our podcasts. So there's that. But anyway, do pick up podcasts, at least for now, from Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Okay, let's dive into? Yes, let's tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's out of the Associated Press by Mary Claire Jelinek. The House panel investigating the January 6th U.S. Capitol insurrection voted yesterday, Wednesday, to pursue contempt charges against Jeffery Clark, a former Justice Department official who refused to answer the committee's questions, but the panel agreed to let him come back for another try. The committee voted 9-0 to pursue criminal charges against Clark, who aligned with Donald Trump ahead of the violent attack as the then president tried to overturn his election defeat. Clark appeared for a deposition last month, but refused to be interviewed, citing Trump's legal efforts to block the committee's investigation, just like a mobster. The Democratic chairman of the January 6th panel, Mississippi Representative Benny Thompson, said it had received a last-minute notification from Clark's lawyer that he now wants to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Thompson said the lawyer had offered no specific basis for that assertion and no facts that would allow the committee to consider it, but the committee will give Clark a second chance at a deposition scheduled for this Saturday. This is, in my view, a last-ditch attempt to delay the Select Committee's proceedings, Thompson said. However, a Fifth Amendment privilege assertion is a weighty one. Even though Mr. Clark previously had the opportunity to make these claims on the record, the Select Committee will provide him another chance to do so. Looks like Clark doesn't want to put it on the record, but it's going to be now, isn't it? Thompson said the committee was still proceeding with the contempt vote, as this is just the first step of the contempt process. The recommendation of criminal contempt charges against Clark will now go to the full House for a vote, though that is expected to be delayed until after the Saturday deposition. If the House votes to hold Clark in contempt, the Justice Department will then decide whether to prosecute. Really? Republican Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming, the panel's vice chairman, said the committee would consider accepting Clark's assertion of his Fifth Amendment rights if Clark says he believes that answering questions about his interactions with Trump and others could incriminate him. It is important to note, however, that Mr. Clark is not excused from testifying simply because President Trump is trying to hide behind inapplicable claims of executive privilege, Cheney said. Trump, who told his supporters to fight like hell the morning of January 6th, has sued to block the committee's work and has attempted to assert executive privilege over documents and interviews, arguing that his private conversations and actions at the time should be shielded from public view. As the current office holder, President Joe Biden has so far rejected Trump's claims because Trump has the honorific of president only because he held the office, but he does not hold the office now. In a transcript of Clark's aborted November 5th interview released by the panel Tuesday, staff and members of the committee attempted to persuade the former Justice Department official to answer questions about his role as Trump pushed the department to investigate his false allegations of widespread fraud in the election. Clark had become an ally of the former president as other justice officials pushed back on the baseless claims. But Clark's attorney, Harry McDougald, said during the interview that Clark was protected not only by Trump's assertion of executive privilege, but also by several other privileges McDougald claimed Clark could be afforded. The committee rejected those arguments, and McDougald and Clark walked out of the interview after about 90 minutes of discussions. According to a report earlier this year by the Senate Judiciary Committee, which interviewed several of Clark's colleagues, Trump's pressure on the Justice Department culminated in a dramatic White House meeting in which Trump ruminated about elevating Clark to Attorney General. He did not do so after several aides threatened to resign. Trump's false claims about a stolen election, the primary motivation for the violent mob that broke into the Capitol and interrupted the certification of Biden's victory, the results were confirmed by state officials and upheld by the courts. Trump's own Attorney General, William Barr, said in December of 2020 that the Justice Department found no evidence of widespread fraud that could have changed the results, because the only fraud that existed are people who voted multiple times for Trump. Thompson wrote on Clark's subpoena that the committee's probe has revealed credible evidence that you attempted to involve the Department of Justice in efforts to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power, and his efforts risked involving the Department of Justice in actions that lacked evidentiary foundation and threatened to subvert the rule of law. Lawmakers on the January 6 panel had vowed to hold any witnesses who do not comply in contempt as they investigate the worst attack on the Capitol in 2 centuries. And on yesterday, Thompson said Clark has left them with no other choice. Lisa Mascaro and Kevin Frecking of the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The federal government could be heading for a temporary shutdown, with Republicans poised to stall a must-pass funding bill in their effort to force a debate in Congress on rolling back the Biden administration's vaccine mandates for some workers. Conservative Republicans in the House and Senate, who are opposed to Biden's vaccine rules, want Congress to take a hardline stand against the mandated shots, even if it means shutting down federal offices over the weekend. But not all Republicans are on board. One GOP senator after another left a private lunch meeting yesterday, Wednesday, voicing concern that they will be blamed for even a short stoppage of the federal government that will not play well with the public. Friday is a government funding deadline, and the Republican objections, particularly in the Senate, where any single senator can hold up proceedings to stall a vote, could delay passage of legislation needed to keep federal operations running. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer opened the chamber saying Democrats are prepared to support the funding bill and urging Republicans not to engage in shutdown politics. Political backlash over the Biden administration's coronavirus vaccine mandates has been building for months. The White House sees the vaccinations as the quickest way to end the pandemic that has claimed more than 780,000 deaths in the U.S. Wednesday sparked fresh fears with the country's first detected case of a troubling new variant. During the last government shutdown battle in September, Republicans also tried to halt the vaccine mandate. Yes. The party of life. In the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by Ronald Bloom and Stephen Hawkins. Major League Baseball plunged into its first work stoppage in a quarter century when the sport's collective bargaining agreement expired yesterday, Wednesday night, and owners immediately locked out players in a move that threatened spring training and opening day. The strategy, management's equivalent of a strike under federal labor law, ended the sports labor peace after 9,740 days over 26 and a half years. Teams decided to force the long-anticipated confrontation during an off-season rather than risk players walking out during the summer as they did in 1994. Players and owners had successfully reached 4 consecutive agreements without a work stoppage, but they have been accelerating toward a clash for more than 2 years. We believe that an off-season lockout is the best mechanism to protect the 2022 season, Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred wrote in a letter to fans. We hope that the lockout will start the negotiations and get us to an agreement that will allow the season to start on time. This defensive lockout was necessary because the Players Association's vision for Major League Baseball would threaten the ability of most teams to be competitive. Talks that started last spring ended yesterday after a brief session of mere minutes with the sides far apart on the dozens of key economic issues. Management's negotiators left the union's hotel about 9 hours before the deal lapsed at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Major League Baseball's 30 controlling owners held a brief digital meeting to reaffirm their lockout decision, and Major League Baseball delivered the announcement of its 4th ever lockout to go along with 5 strikes in an emailed letter to the Major League Baseball Players Association. This stoppage began 30 days after Atlanta's World Series win capped a complete season following a pandemic-shortened 2020 played in empty ballparks. The lockout's immediate impacts were a memo from Major League Baseball to the clubs freezing signings, the cancellation of next week's annual winter meetings in Orlando, and banishing players from team workout facilities and weight rooms while perhaps chilling ticket sales for 2022. The union demanded change following anger over a declining average salary, middle-class players forced out by teams concentrating payroll on the wealthy, and veterans jettisoned in favor of lower-paid youth, especially among clubs tearing down their rosters to rebuild. Management's intent on preserving salary restraints gained in recent decades rejected the union's request for what teams regarded as significant alterations to the sport's economic structure, including lowering service time needed for free agency and salary arbitration. Well, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, the power behind the throne. In an age where the term icon is overused, each of the Williams sisters are just that in the world of professional tennis. For a parent, raising one such phenom would be a feat, but their father Richard turned out too. However, as King Richard shows, the man and his approach towards parenting and coaching was a bit complicated. Half biopic and half sports flick, this one follows the Williams sisters from their modest upbringing in Compton to international stardom. Calling Richard a pushy parent would be an understatement. As he shares with anyone who'll listen, he had a 78-page plan to make his daughters champions before they were born. In addition to rigorous practices, the girls and their 3 older sisters were expected to excel academically, all while remaining humble. Richard's approach raises some eyebrows and isn't necessarily aligned with that of his wife, Brandy, played by an amazing Ingenue Ellis in a powerful, if often understated, performance. Whatever Richard's issues, there's no denying that he's onto something as the Williams sisters' successes mount. There's also no denying that Will Smith gives his best performance in years here. Non-glamorously, Smith portrays Richard as equal parts caring and pushy, with glimpses into regret concerning his own life. The line between supportive parenting and living vicariously through one's kids isn't always clear, and it's a credit to director Ronaldo Marcus Green that Richard doesn't come across as either villain or saint, but as a fully formed, complex person. Since the Williams sisters are executive producers, it's unlikely he would have been portrayed negatively, but it's Smith who elevates the proceedings here. King Richard does a good job showing the team infrastructure behind the star or stars here, all while spotlighting an interesting and eccentric character. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
As fall turns to winter, the flu season will be upon us in force. The best way to avoid influenza is to get immunized. Everyone 6 months and older should be vaccinated. Those at increased risk for flu complications include children under the age of 5 and adults 65 and older, people with chronic health problems such as heart disease, asthma, and diabetes, and pregnant women. To get your annual flu vaccine, see your healthcare provider or go to a pharmacy, grocery store, or clinic in your area. If you get influenza, talk with your healthcare provider right away about antiviral medication. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the 3rd trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
In the U.S., about 15% of people who have HIV don't know they have it. If you have it, the sooner you get diagnosed, the sooner you can start life-saving treatment. Everyone should get tested at least once, and those at high risk should get tested at least once a year. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, get tested as soon as possible. Healthcare providers, conduct routine testing according to CDC's guidelines. Screen all youth and adults for HIV risk behaviors. Help patients understand their risk and the best prevention options. If people test positive, link them to treatment and prevention counseling quickly. HIV testing is important. Know your HIV status. See your healthcare provider to get tested or find a testing site at gettested.cdc.gov. You can also get a home testing kit online or from a drugstore. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1859. That was the day John Brown was hanged in Charlestown, Virginia, in what is now West Virginia. He had been sentenced to death on charges of treason, murder, and insurrection for his role in the raid on the United States Federal Armory at Harper's Ferry. Brown and 21 abolitionists intended to seize the arsenal there, then build a free settlement in the Appalachian Mountains. From there, abolitionists and free people of color would wage a guerrilla war against the slave labor system throughout the South. Convicted on November 2nd, Brown resisted plans for rescue and prepared to die a martyr. And on this day, John Brown wrote his last statement. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed, it might be done. He was marched out of the Jefferson County Jail through a crowd of onlookers that included Stonewall Jackson and John Wilkes Booth to the gallows where he was hanged. While many abolitionists distanced themselves from his actions, they defended him and memorialized him after his death. Frederick Douglass remarked many years later, "His zeal in the cause of my race was far greater than mine. It was as the burning sun to my taper light. Mine was bounded by time. His stretched away to the boundless shores of eternity. I could live for the slave, but he could die for him."
Oh, John Brown's body lies molding in the grave, while weep the sons of bondage whom he ventured out to save. And though he lost his life in his struggle to free the slaves, his truth is marching on.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
John Brown's body lies molding in the grave.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin, weather from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting only a high of about 53. Mostly cloudy early today, then sunshine for the afternoon, winds light and variable. We are in an air stagnation advisory, though the air quality index is good at 30 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at level 1. And no changes in our confirmed cases and deceased on coronavirus, so we will just continue on with the weather report. Barometric pressure locally is rising at 30.24 inches. Visibility is down to 4 miles, and relative humidity is at 100%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 41 and sunny. Paris is 43 and cloudy. Rome is 53 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 38 and fair. Kabul is 41 and clear. Hong Kong is 59 and clear. Tokyo is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 68 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 53 and partly cloudy. And New York, New York is 51 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Vladimir Ischanov of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. Russia warned yesterday, Wednesday, that a number of U.S. diplomats will have to leave Russia before the end of next month, the latest salvo in a diplomatic tug-of-war between Moscow and Washington. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said those U.S. Embassy personnel who would have spent more than 3 years in Russia would have to leave Russia by the 31st of January. She said the Russian demand mirrors U.S. actions that would make 55 Russian diplomats to leave. The Russian ambassador to Washington, Anatoly Antonov, said last week that 27 Russian diplomats will have to leave by January 30th, followed by an equal number half a year later. He rejected the U.S. Department's argument that the Russian diplomats will have to leave because their visas are expiring, saying that Washington's refusal to extend their visas effectively amounted to the diplomats' expulsion.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A World War II bomb exploded at a construction site next to a busy railway line in Munich yesterday, injuring four people, one of them seriously, German authorities said. A column of smoke was seen rising from the site near the train station. The construction site for a new commuter train line is located on the approach to Munich Central Station, which is a bit over a half a mile to the east. Trains to and from that station, one of Germany's busiest, was suspended, but service resumed in mid-afternoon. A few local trains were evacuated. The fire service said there was no damage to the tracks. Unexploded bombs are still found frequently in Germany, even 76 years after the end of the war, and often during work on construction sites. They are usually diffused or disposed of in controlled explosions, a process that sometimes entails large-scale evacuations as a precaution. Bavarian's State Interior Minister, Joachim Herman, said the 550-pound bomb was found during drilling work. Herman said authorities must now investigate why it was not discovered earlier. He noted that such construction sites are usually scanned carefully in advance for possible unexploded bombs. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.